Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining me tonight. I'm Paul Brandano. I'm the Executive Director of the Master of Science in Business Analytics at UCLA Anderson, and it's always a thrill to get a chance to review with you the job of my dreams. Actually, I'll call it that. It's been the career of a lifetime to build and manage and operate the career service, I should say, the MSBA program at UCLA Anderson, which includes a career services team, admissions, and all of the operations of an annual program. We're, of course, right in the middle of the second round and almost to the third round of our admissions cycle for the class of 2026. So I welcome all of you who are aiming for that class. Happy to answer any questions you might have there. Also happy to welcome anybody who we met along the way, everybody that was invited to this call, we met somewhere in the world. And I suspect some of you might be 27 or 28, applicants, but welcome early if you are. And then those of you who are joining us on the web, because we'll be recording this session, welcome to all of you as well. It's wonderful to have you, wonderful to have an opportunity to review with you a program that I think is, represents the best of what specialty master's programs can do. And I'll tell you why more directly momentarily. So let's without further ado, let's get going. I'll take you through what will be about a 30-minute presentation, and then we'll close with some Q&A. So let me start by rolling to the next slide here. So as I mentioned, I'm Paul Brandano. I've been with UCLA Anderson now as the Executive Director of the MSBA program for 8 years, since 2017, when we started as a small program of 40 students. And now we are aiming for 120 for the third year in a row. You can see next to me in this photo that we've got quite a team that I consider to be the best on campus at UCLA, and happy to try to defend that to anybody who might ask. And that is because they're fully committed, as I am, to every student's success, whether they work in admissions or operations or career services. This is a group of people who just goes the extra mile. Everybody in this slide is still with us, except for one exception, and that's Vash Doshi. You may get to know him differently if you end up going to UC Davis, because he left us to run career services, as Larry does for us up there at UC Davis. So we're thankful for his efforts in business development for us. And we've now had a new employee, Rapiel Manansala, join us to do that work for us, and he's doing a tremendous job as well. So for the most part, the team you see is the team that will support you as students. And the reason I pointed out is that very few, especially master's programs, have the luxury of a team this big. And it's because we really do try to do a lot in a very short period of time for you. And I'll explain what that is now. So first, let me give you an overview of what we are. As you probably have done a lot of research already, this slide is probably enough. And if you're still asking questions, you're probably early enough in the cycle that we can, handle the rest in the Q&A. But effectively, from a historical standpoint, the MSBA program is the youngest program on campus here at the business school at UCLA. We call ourselves the UCLA Anderson School of Management. We have 7 degree programs on campus. We are the youngest, 8 years old now, but we were born with the intention of developing a leader, and we call ourselves transformational leaders these days at UCLA Anderson. It's sort of our target phrase is to build transformational leadership. And so in that effort, we wanted to build transformational leaders who could enter a boardroom with a set of skills that were both technical and also MBA, with a proximity to an MBA, done in a shorter period of time, so that you become the bridge between your line of business executives and what would be traditionally IT and the tools that they present to the organization, so that you can take all the data that might exist in any company in any industry and begin processing that data with analytics and models in mind to solve complex questions that are being asked by those top executives. What it means is that our youngest program, which also has our youngest cohort on average, will be in a boardroom very young in their career. And so we have to build a program that services both the technical, acumen that a student will need, as well as all the business ability, the networking ability, the communication skills, everything that's necessary to feel confident in a room as a 23-year-old when you're talking to the CEO of a major corporation, because it does happen more often than you might expect. So with that, we've built the STEM certified MSBA program that's 15 months long, which is a bit longer than average in our category, with an on-campus experience that will give you the tools to harness the power of data and gain insights and tell data stories, which is an important part, that drive strategic business decisions. So you're going to make a difference in every business you enter. We want you to be holistic in your skills so that you can apply them in any industry, which will make for a very long and robust career. And that's ultimately why we exist. With that, we've been ranked number 2 in the world. QS is an organization you may or may not be aware of. I might have met you at a QS event this year. They also are the only ranking to speak of for specialty master's programs like ours. And I'm thankful to say that they are quite quantitative in their approach and do a wonderful job of really bringing together a ranking that includes all the things that really matter when it comes to academic, career, and student life. And we feel very proud to have been ranked well, either number 1 or number 2 in the world since the inception of that ranking, and since the inception of our program, for that matter. So we'll actually be submitting new data this week with hopes of staying in that position next year. But in the meantime, feel free to check out that ranking. It gives you a lot of breakdowns of all the different programs and why they ranked us the way they did. So I thought about this presentation and the fact that it would be on the web, and I wanted to make sure I brought a very simple slide so if I was making people bored in the first couple, I could get you to a very simple 1-slide explanation of why UCLA Anderson's MSBA program is differentiated and how from the other programs of its type and in its category. We know that you as potential applicants are looking at not only MSBA programs, but also MFE programs in many cases, perhaps quantitative economics, or perhaps MQM type programs at Duke. They are all similar with slight differences. And so I wanted to point out, essentially where we sit in that continuum. So 3 key differentiators for UCLA Anderson MSBA program is that first, we're born from a curriculum that is bespoke, meaning it's been built from scratch just for MSBA. It's not been repurposed by professors who are teaching in other programs and are just bringing a course in and relabeling it. In fact, everything we've done from 2017 has been net new on campus at Anderson and at UCLA. And that is that it's not only a top ranked program, but a rigorous technical analytics curriculum. So those words together mean a lot when you look at MSBA programs. Rigorous means that we are going to bring an experience in the classroom that will challenge most of our students, if not all of them, and certainly all of them some of the time. When it comes to, for example, the breadth of skill sets necessary to do this work, you're going to need elements of computer science, of higher level mathematics. You'll need, it won't hurt to have hard sciences in your background, or perhaps even music composition, right? There's a world where patterns are recognized across industry, and we look for people who have a net, I would say, a foundation of quantitative skills, regardless, and maybe holistic, to whatever they learned in their undergraduate skills. So you might come in as a mathematician, an economist, a computer scientist, and now you're together becoming business analysts and ideally data scientists. So very rigorous in that sense relative to our peers. I think we rank well with MIT and hold up well relative to their curriculum. And we're taught in business schools. So not all MSBA programs exist in business schools. Some are shared by the engineering schools. We do what we do here at the business school because we believe that it gives you a closer connection to all of the faculty who are really industry leading in each of their fields. So whether it be operations, finance, marketing, et cetera, they're writing the research that's changing management science. And we want you to be there for that. Likewise, we bring in practitioners from all over the world, but most commonly from Southern California in the entertainment industry, the healthcare industry, et cetera, and typically Northern California when we're reaching out to the high-tech world and asking practitioners to come to campus. And I'll give you a few examples of that when we talk about the curriculum. So number 1, very strong, very rigorous curriculum. That's the foundation of a great program, and we certainly believe that we meet those standards. Secondly, we invest, as I mentioned, we overly invest in staff and in particular in career services. It's pretty rare that you're going to find a school and a program that's so heavily invested in career services that they're offering essentially a dual curriculum that runs in parallel, where you're learning on a constant basis from either our career services team, who are helping you with more traditional career preparation, or from practitioners in the industry who are helping you overcome perhaps It might be the interview, the SQL interview in particular, or it might be just technical interviewing questions. So there's a tremendous amount of effort, and I can explain some more of that later in career services to make sure that you're well-rounded and that the industry that's expecting you to arrive ready sees that you're ready. And I mean, meaning not only from the curriculum, but in the way that you interact as a professional and as a young manager. Third, and I think this is as big a part of it as any, but maybe the most overlooked, is student life. So the UCLA Anderson School is a school that brings, as I said, 7 degree programs, many of them global, or at least global in part. We have a large international student population in our specialty masters in particular. And often we welcome a student to the United States for the first time. And when we talk about what that means, then to be 15 months later in the boardroom with executives expecting answers, you can bet that a lot of people would feel unready if we didn't infuse the program with a bit more student life-oriented activity. And that is, of course, to help you bond as a group, to help you share success as a group and lift each other up and not compete. But also, in particular, we do things like work with the groundlings, who are, if you know them, they're the minor league team for Saturday Night Live. If you're a Saturday Night Live fan, much of their talent comes from programs with organizations like the Groundlings. They come in and they actually train our students 4 times during our program. We also take the students to the show, and we use improv as a way of getting you quick on your feet, but also very comfortable in a room. Right, feeling very comfortable networking and getting along with others very quickly, because really that at the end of the day, when you're in the boardroom, it's that ease that's going to make you fit in and fit in quickly, and sort of a quiet confidence, humble confidence, if you will. And we work very hard to help you just have many opportunities to have a good time together. We go to the beach, we go bowling, we go to all the games you can imagine as a group. So it's a wonderful student life. And we think that the 3 of those things together, curriculum, career services, and student life, really make us differentiate relative to our peers. And I think that's what QS notices. It's just this sort of intentional effort that we make in each of these 3 areas that makes all the difference in the end. I won't spend too much time on the slide because I think it captured it well here, but this is our sort of historical slide on differentiators. And one of the things I wanted to point out, in addition to what I've already said, is that we offer a career-driven internship, which is not common with every program. More programs are doing it than ever, but we think it's really essential to helping you either prepare for a job, decide that that company isn't for you or that it is for you, and then ultimately to either sign on with them or to pick up another opportunity for fall in your final job search. We think that the career-driven internship is really a core component of our program, and we think of it as our summer quarter. The experiential capstone consulting project is also fundamental to Anderson, UCLA Anderson. My whole career before MSBA was dedicated to helping bring companies to students, connect students to companies, and make sure they deliver quality results in our full-time and part-time MBA programs. So through that experience, I wanted to build a program in capstones that was unique to a much smaller cohort, and also acknowledge that as individual contributors, in many cases, you're not always going to be team oriented. You might, be an individual contributor for the first few years of your career. And so I would say about half the students will choose to do a second internship. We give you capstone credit for it in the fall, and you just go off and do it and get experience in product management or, a particular industry area, whatever it is that you need to do for your own growth. We encourage it, and we allow you to do it as a capstone if you like. Or to come back and do a traditional capstone with us means you're working on a team of 5 with a company that we have found. They end up delivering to you a set of data that's been pre-vetted, pre-approved to be shared, and ultimately available to you for analytics with a specific goal in mind that you work out with them, or at least refine with them after an initial conversation with us to get a sense that the scope and project is healthy for the program. But teams every year do a tremendous job and always kind of blow my mind at the impacts they can make in a very short 10 weeks. So that's the capstone experience, also a differentiator. And I think the rest of them I mentioned already, so I won't go too much deeper there. But let's talk a bit about curriculum. I'll keep this a little tighter. I do expect that you'll find more information on the web, but there's a few things I want to point out on our curriculum first and foremost. Our program, when it was built largely by our decisions, operations, and technology management faculty, and in particular by Felipe Caro, who's an OR research superstar. He'll actually be chaired and as the chair of the department quite soon. And with that, he is constantly focused on doing research with companies like Zara, if you've seen his work there, where he helped make fast retail a reality using data. And several, also in the mining industry, made huge impacts. But take a look at his research, because it really speaks to the level of technical depth that he brings and that all the faculty bring to this curriculum. Looking at this slide, we've got effectively five quarters, and they start every year. We start in fall, about August into September. September is really when the classes start, but we do orientation and things like that typically in September. One of those early things that we do is we give you a Python workshop that's 2 weeks in September, followed by 5 weeks into the quarter. And you see that in the first blue box. It's taught by a third party, actually. We bring in a company that's focused on helping effectively corporations using a book that they write, one of the top textbooks in the world. And they give you a fast 5 or 7 weeks, in this case, boot camp, to get you prepared to be doing the programming all the way through the course. And because you're not always programming in Python, we have a statistics course that uses R, so that you're using both in the program right from the start. We also teach our optimization course in Python in that first quarter. And we give you exposure to machine learning, that every student will take a 5-week machine learning course, specifically because recruiters are coming in earlier and earlier and expecting you to have machine learning skills right out of the gate. And so we're going to give you machine learning at the beginning, and actually, once again, right at the end, if you want it as an elective. But machine learning will only be a real hyper focus for some. And so we don't force you all to take the advanced course. You see career curriculum there. That's a 10-week course that runs parallel with their fall quarter. It is not graded, but it tends to be among the most popular courses in the program because it really addresses another primary concern, which is your job. In winter, we move to our first business courses, which is the Business Fundamentals for Analytics course, a course that is essentially an MBA in a course. It's a very quick economics, finance, and marketing course. It's designed to give you a picture of how these organizations are functional areas in a company, how they operate, the kinds of questions that they'd be asking, and the jargon of those sections of a company, right? If you've been working in marketing your whole life, you know how much jargon there is. If you're working in finance, you know how much jargon there is there. Likewise, depending on the industry you're in, there's a lot of industry jargon. And so we want to get you exposed to that, just that ability and facility with language relative to those areas of a company, because you instantly gain credibility when you have it. And so that's what that course is about. It's about giving you exposure, getting the fundamentals in each of those areas like an MBA would have, and then getting you off into the technical courses as well. So the rest of that quarter is a data management course that goes maybe as deep as any data management course does in any MSBA program in the country, which makes it controversial because the ones who are ready for it and really want to be data engineers absolutely love it. And those who come in perhaps with less quantitative ability or perhaps less computer science interest, they struggle a bit more. But what we find is that by giving everybody a deep data management course, you have a certain understanding of the way that data is moved and managed. It's ETL'd, if you will, extracted, transferred, and loaded, as well as managed in the cloud and all the things that come with a modern data science background. And so you get it quickly. It can be a bit painful, I admit, but it's a very worthwhile course. It's a real differentiator in a program like ours. You see 2 industry seminar courses there. I'll point both of those out. They answer a question that we had early on, Larry and I in particular, and that was, how do we bring enough practical to the program so that people leave the program and don't frankly embarrass themselves by not knowing how to do this stuff or what the companies are looking for? Because it's one thing to learn the theoretical, which is absolutely critical. It's another thing entirely to know what Amazon's actually doing and how to be ready for it. And so we bring as many companies as we can in from as many industries, so that not only you learn what those companies do, but also there's an opportunity to cross-pollinate ideas from industry to industry. You might, for example, graduate, work in high tech and go, hey, I remember that Cedars-Sinai was doing something really interesting in their predictive analytics work when it came to palliative care. And it seems very similar to the work that we need to be doing right now. Let me reach out to that person and see what they might teach me, right? So there's a lot of value in a course like Industry Seminar because it's 20 straight weeks, industry-led, 3 hours a week. It makes the industry professional super happy to do it. And there's a bit of a Trojan horse in it, right? It gets them to get to know you well before you even apply to their company. And there's a real win in that in the long run. Finally, our spring quarter, I'll speak about it holistically for now. Each of these courses is bespoke. Each of them is designed by the faculty member who's teaching it, and each of these courses is the most popular course in the program. So as a group, you're kind of building toward this spring that's really powerful, because it's going to take everything that you've learned in the first 2 quarters and give you a final quarter to really bring it all together. And so right now, Anand Bodapati is teaching his customer analytics course this quarter. Competitive analytics is being taught by Keith Chen, and Velibor Misic is teaching our operations analytics course. I recommend looking all of them up. They're luminaries in their respective fields, and they're wonderful people. They're just really, enjoyable to be around. So those 3 courses will make you the difference maker in a company. And then you go off and do it. So you'll start your summer internship after 10 weeks of after 10 weeks of spring. All the while, by the way, there's lots of student life in here. Improv, all the bowling, all the things that we do to have fun, that happens here as well. So you're busy. Once you come back from your internships, you give us a report. We actually sit and listen to reports, live reports, a presentation, I should say, from every person who's done an internship. And it's always incredibly uplifting, and you see a transformation in every student. So I encourage you to enjoy that when it comes around, because you'll see the growth in yourself too. Second fall. So we come back for capstone. I mentioned before that you have an option. You can do an internship a second time if you want to, or continue an internship out of the summer, or you do a capstone project. I could talk about that in the Q&A in more detail, but effectively we're getting a question from a company that is quite significant, big enough that a team of 5 will have to work 10 weeks to solve it. And they'll be largely data oriented, of course. So they're looking at a major question that they're facing that can be solved with data, or maybe several questions. For example, think about a hotel who owns many brands, and they say, how do we get a customer to stay one more night at any one of our hotel brands? That's a big question, and it's a data oriented one. And so a student might look at that for 10 weeks. And there's dozens of examples of that I can talk about. In addition to those courses, you see that there's a lot of electives there. We're going to have you do a capstone in the fall and 3 minimum electives. And each of these electives is 5 weeks long. And so if you're only doing 3 plus the capstone, it makes your fall quarter the most flexible. And that's important because you're also looking for work. If you have a job, we often see that students load up on electives. So they'll take, maybe 10 weeks of electives 3 times and take 6 and end up getting everything you see there, more or less everything. The one I want to point out is here is just because of the change it represents in our program, we're constantly improving. There's the one listed last, large language models, comes from student demand. It's not for everybody. It's a course that probably seats 12 in the end. Lots more join and very few finish. Same thing with advanced machine learning, but both of those courses are super technical and super profound in their impact. And so, for example, a large language models course will allow you to go and work for an organization and build a custom private internal large language model. Effectively your ChatGPT, or at least agents of that ChatGPT that can solve for complex questions without exposing that company to all the risks that a large open AI model might expose them to. So it's a very powerful course. It's taught by a practitioner that flies in every week from Silicon Valley. He was on the Google AI team before starting his own company. So it's a good example of the kinds of exposure that we're trying to bring not only to the students, but also the companies and the people that run them in Silicon Valley. So that's an overview of the curriculum. There's a lot to say there. I'm recording for our website, so I won't say too much more than that, but I will take any questions you might have on it as we move on. So speaking about career services, I wanted to point out a few things. First, the slide is our beach day. We try to do that once a year in the fall as we kick things off. I won't tell you about all the things we do that day, but they are really fun and they end up bonding a group like no other. But this slide is really about career services, and what it's focused on is that there's a lot that we do. I've already talked before about the great investment. The one thing I didn't mention is our MSBA career coaches. These are actually, we call them MACs. It should actually say alumni career coaches, because they are hired, they're actually paid, and they're assigned a small number, typically 2, 3, 4 students at a time. And they're usually by industry interest or product, or I should say job function. So if you want to work in product management, you're probably going to have an alum who works in product management as your MAC. And this is a person who's there to keep you accountable to yourself, to keep you efficient, making sure that you're doing all the right kinds of things and not wasting your time. And also to make sure that you have a full understanding of the job that you're focused on and that you're practiced in things like mock interviewing, right? So this is a person who's sort of built in for you to help you get to all the things you have to do or really should do to land a job in today's really complex and job environment. I think I mentioned everything else up to now, but you get a picture here that it's very all encompassing. And I shouldn't stop without mentioning Larry Brayman, who does the most incredible job. I think he might be the best guy in this business when it comes to career services. He ran his own business for 10 years before he even joined us. And he's just been, it's magical to watch him do his work. He's just fully invested in everybody's success, and it pays off. We see it in our results. So that's that. What are those results? Well, typically the most interesting one to students and candidates is where people end up. And you can see that they end up everywhere across industry and some of the biggest names you can imagine. And there's companies here that I can look to, for example, Intuit, BCG Gamma, Google, Apple, Snap. I mean, actually, many of the ones that I'm looking at have had more than one full-time employee recruited from our program, and they move around, so they go from one company to the other. And so as you look into our program, one thing I would point out is look at our site under 4 companies. There's a link that says that when you click over on that link, it will bring you a list of the classes of 21, et cetera, 22, 23, 24. And every one of those links is actually a picture of a class. So you see everybody's photo and a link off into their LinkedIn. So you can get a sense of where are they now? How are they doing? And I think that really is maybe the biggest ROI example that I can offer you is they're doing very well in general. And typically they do very well relatively quickly. It might take 6 months for some, but they end up landing in something great. And so that's probably all I need to say about career services for now. It's a highly dedicated area. What I will say is that when you come into the program, we're going to be looking for you to really represent a spectrum as a class, and we admit for that. So we're looking for people that have strengths across the board and to help each other out, to cross-pollinate, as you will. Our more quantitative students may not be our best presenters, for example. Our better presenters may not be our most quantitative. And so sharing those skills with each other is really powerful. But either way, you're going to end up in some role. And the question is, which role? This slide really speaks to that. When we started the program, I couldn't tell you exactly what this slide would have looked like. We weren't sure. But what I can tell you now is that when our students are hired, they're hired across a wide spectrum from very tech-heavy, things like data engineers, who are very popular with the market if you're that strong. Data scientists, of course, machine learning engineers. These are the super quants. And they stay super quantitative, but they often balance themselves out with all that improv. And then they become, very popular, I would say, in their companies, very enjoyable to be around kinds of people. Balanced, of course, is all the analysts of every type that you can imagine, all the industry analysts, all the functional analysts, you name it, and they probably exist in companies, and we've put somebody there. But of course, this is the place where the industry is always evolving. We never know who's hiring for what. So we get you prepared to take any one of these jobs. And likewise, on the business heavier side, we see occasionally a student will come in with 5 or 6 years of consulting experience. They're going to go out and essentially be the chief data officer pretty quickly, and so we're prepared to put you in roles that are more, sort of ready for that. If you've got a lot of experience or you've worked as a consulting agent, organizations are likely to hire you first. And if you don't have the consulting experience but really want to do it, there's certainly pathways to start a consulting career out of the program. But as you can see, the skill sets are different depending on the role you take. And we want you to find fit first and foremost. And we'll spend a lot of time with you on that. So that's the picture of analytics roles. I talked about student life a bit. This is just a picture of that. One of the things that's interesting about this photo is this was an earlier class. I think this is a class where we had 93 or so students, a bit smaller. But each of those students is holding a piece of string, effectively colored string. And that color, it's hard to see in this photo actually, but if you look closely, you can see that there's different colors. And those colors all represent different backgrounds. So we had the students throwing a ball of rope back and forth until they built this net. And effectively, that's your network. And when you look around, you can see that your network includes, you name it, backgrounds, accountants, finance, consultants, and of course, all the hard scientists you can imagine from every area, all the engineering types you can imagine. So it's lovely to see. And pretty quickly, all these people became very close friends, which is really nice. And you see that on the bottom here from our, on-campus events where we have Diwali, for example, lots of dancing, all of our sports events. Students go off on their own and go off to Vegas or go up to Yosemite or do whatever they might like to do on their own, of course. We host a weekly, what we call Anderson Afternoons, with all the students on campus on Thursdays. And that picture on the right of all the students together represents a mixed group, but they are all mingling around essentially beer and wine and music and food and whatever they have that week. But it's a good chance to get to know the Anderson community, if you will. And then the last picture is the ropes course. It's one of the things we do that I don't spend too much time talking about because I'd rather it be a surprise. But there's a lot of that, a lot of, intentional student life, if you will. And I think that you'd enjoy it if you joined us. So I've got a couple of slides on admissions, and I want to make sure I don't miss any of them. So I'm going to roll back and forth quickly. Here we are. So admissions is an ongoing process for us every year. We don't typically start the process until January, and we typically finish in about late June at the latest. Ideally, we have a class locked in by mid-June. You can see that our requirements are not dissimilar for most of the programs in our category. The one thing I will say about this slide is that I think it intimidates people because the numbers are so high. But as the executive director of the program, I am happy to tell you that we look at a wide range in each of those numbers, because to bring in a truly holistic cohort, one that has a balance of skills and isn't all going for the same type of job, for example, you've got to be selective. You've got to be selective in different ways. You've got to be selective both for the super quants, but also maybe those who are doing something really unique and really have the aptitude but haven't used it. And so you'll be surprised at who you meet in your classes and how often they will teach you something from another angle. And that's really important to us too. So although students generally do very well in the quantitative measures, there are times where there's exceptions made. So I'll keep that in mind when I talk to candidates, for example. English language proficiency is important to us, but only to the level that allows for common communication. It's not the most important thing to us. Actually, what matters more is your ability to connect with people. And so we'll be looking for that. Charisma is a good word for it, right? If you're showing charisma in your interviews, you're probably reaching us because that's likely to reach a recruiter too. So if you think about it, your interview with us as the first interview for a job you'll have in 15 months and treat it that way, chances are you're going to have a good experience with the interview. And then I've put some actual numbers up here. I like to be transparent, and this is a picture of where, so where we've been and where we're going in terms of numbers the last couple of years. We typically see about 1,000 applications a year. Our target is 120. Last year, we were a little bit over that because we over-admitted. It might be, my hope is that we'll get to 120 this year. We're currently over-admitted. So those of you who are waiting, we're waiting for answers so that we can give out more answers. Is effectively where we are today. You can see our ratios are gender parity, which has been a reality since we started, and it's very important to us in STEM. Our target for domestics this year is 25%. We aim for 50, but we expect to be about 25%, which is pretty much ahead of the curve, slightly for our category. There's just fewer domestic applicants for our degree. And then you see the numbers as they come in there. And again, the youngest cohort on campus, which is both energetic and an opportunity to learn a few things quickly about being maybe emotional maturity, perhaps readiness for the workforce, et cetera. All those things do come into play when we see a slightly younger student cohort come together. And so we spend a lot of time there just making sure that you're feeling comfortable when you enter a workforce that's largely 5 years older on average. Okay, so looking at our fees and our dates, this is the dates for this year. Those of you who are looking for future years, they will definitely be January, March, and May. It might be that they're May 1st next year. It might be January 7th or January 12th, but typically it's the first couple of weeks of January that we start. Our program fees for the class of 2026 are just over $75,000. We tell you to prepare for about $95,000 at about $20,000 for your living expenses to be here in Los Angeles for 15 months. We expect that our fees typically are, the University of California controls those fees, and they typically increase them somewhere between 3 and 5% per year. So this number is 2026. If you add 4% for safety, that's probably a good target number. Something around 78,000 is probably what we'd expect for the class of 2027. The start date for this current year is September 25th, 2025. Every year will be about that as well. Okay. Before I close, I want to just point out that we do a lot on social media. And when I say we, I mean our students. So if you want to get a picture of what that student life looks like, what that student experience is, follow us on Instagram at UCLA MSBA, at UCLA _MSBA. And that will give you a picture not only of this year, but all the years past and the kinds of things that we've been doing together, and maybe give you some ideas about what you might like to do if you were a student with us next year. Okay, so we've gotten through it. Fantastic. You can see that we have 2 email addresses here on the bottom of this slide. If you have questions about any of the things that I've talked about, or maybe specific questions about your case, you can always email us there. You can find a frequently asked questions sheet, which I would recommend going to first, because chances are we've caught it at some point. And if it's net new, it'll end up on the frequently asked questions sheet.